Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 30th edition of Monday Marketing Minutes. Thank you for joining the broadcast. I certainly appreciate your participation. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Monday Marketing Minutes. This is our fourth episode, so I'm actually getting fairly comfortable with the technology that we're using. We're going to cover some marketing tips and advice from material I've put together over the years. But most importantly, we're going to be answering your questions, viewer questions. I have about 4 that came in between last Monday's episode and today's episode, so I'll be covering those. But in the meantime, I also would be happy to entertain your questions live. You'll see a question box in the upper right-hand side of your screen. Simply type in your question, and I'll try to keep an eye on that box as we go through today's program. In addition to answering the viewer questions that I got in the past week or so, I will also show you a short video from my friend Bob Schuster with Owl Eye Consulting out in Bend, Oregon. He's a seasoned entrepreneur who's been in small business for ages, and he's a coach, not just marketing, but a business coach. So you'll hear a brief program from him about eating that frog, which is something Mark Twain said years ago, and also the topic of a book that's available. If you have questions for next week's program, I would encourage you to send them to me at john@johntorino.com. The link is there on your screen, and I will be happy to include them in next week's edition of Monday Marketing Minutes. And remember, you can ask questions anytime as we go through today. So, today's tips. One of the most important things that you need to know if you're going to do an effective job of marketing is the characteristics of your potential customers. What kind of people are they? What are the demographics around them? What do they like to do? What are their income levels? What do they read? What do they watch? What social media platforms do they use? What leisure activities do they indulge in? What kind of pets do they like? Are they dog people or cat people, or are they fish people? These are kind of important things to find out about your potential customers in order to make sure that you'll be able to match your offering to their needs and wants and desires. You'll also want to make sure that you check on market segment sizes. If there's more than one niche where you are likely to be successful, you want to go after the niches that are the largest if you're going to maximize revenue. Or conversely, if you're starting with something called version 1.0, you might want to start with a small niche and get those people involved with you in a beta, for example, to help them figure out or help you figure out what the real needs are for your product or for your service. So you want to make sure that the market segment sizes and the niches are big enough to actually support what it is you're trying to do. When you put your marketing plan together, it's also important to analyze your environment. What's the competitive landscape look like? Are there other people offering the same product and service that you offer, or are you unique? If you're unique, you actually may be in a better position. Although if you're a very early pioneer, you may also have the unenviable task of educating your folks on their need for your product or service. This happened to me back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was in the technical world and trying to teach design engineers how to design circuits to be easier to test. The test engineers loved me. They were the small niche. The design engineers could care less. They were the large niche. But I was able to use the test engineers as an entree and get them to be my internal salespeople with their companies so that they would bring me in to teach the design folks. So you need to take a look at, even though I was the only one teaching it, any barriers to entry, such as apathy on behalf of the people who can really make best use of the information or the product or service you're trying to provide. Location is another issue that needs to be looked at when you're thinking about starting your business. If you're going to do a brick and mortar operation, you want to make sure that it's a easy to get to location. You want to make sure there's adequate parking. You want to make sure that you are in an area that people with like interests or interest in your product or service are likely to visit. Again, this is back to looking at potential customer characteristics. In my early days, I used to notice piano stores because I grew up selling pianos and organs with my dad. And it's interesting that they kind of group by threes. And even in Los Angeles, where we were in Westchester, we had Westchester Music down the street, the Hammond organ store across the street, and we were on another corner. And one year I was in Malmo, Sweden, to do a seminar for Telub over there. And lo and behold, there were 3 piano stores within 2 blocks of each other in that little town of Malmo, Sweden. So location is important. Sometimes you want to be close to the competition, sometimes you don't. So it's another kind of an issue that you want to give some thought to. Today's advice is a little more specific. I help people put marketing plans together. I have a seminar up on udemy.com called the Marketing Plan Seminar, very complicated title, to help you put together a marketing plan. And if you don't have a marketing plan, I believe you are at a very big disadvantage. It's been said that people don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. So you want to make sure you have a plan, and you want to make sure it's written down. I'm of the opinion that if your plan is not written down, it's not a plan, it's a wish. And when you do your plan, you want to start with your vision at the very top. What is it you hope to accomplish with your business? And your why. Why are you doing this? Hopefully it's something that you love and will enjoy. And then the goals. What are you trying to get to? Where are you trying to get to? Once you establish the goal, getting from point A to point B, for example, with point B being the goal, you can then create some strategies for getting there. And there may be alternative strategies based on the analysis you did, based on the tips I just gave you about analyzing your customers' characteristics, taking a look at the market's niches and the market segment sizes. And only then do you want to get into the tactics, down into the noise or the nitty-gritty or nuts and bolts of, do I use social media? Do I use print? Do I use television? Do I use face-to-face networking? What tactics will work best to implement my strategies that will help me achieve my goals? So the plan is written from the top down, even though you're going to be implementing it from the bottom up. And when you're developing that strategy, you'll want to take into consideration a lot of characteristics, not only for your company, your service, your product, but also the characteristics, again, of your customers. Who are you trying to reach? This is kind of important because if you don't know who you're trying to reach, it's hard to craft messages to try to reach those folks. So we need to know who we're trying to reach, and then we need to decide what messages we're trying to convey to those folks. My experience has been that effective marketing messages interact not only with a person's brain or their logic, but also with their belly or their emotions. People buy based on emotional decisions. They use logic to rationalize them, but they buy based on emotional decisions. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of defines levels from the physical safety survival need all the way up to self-actualization, which can help you figure out which messages are best for delivering to the various clients, depending on where their needs and desires and wants fall on that hierarchy. And then once you've figured out who you're trying to reach and what messages you're trying to convey, it's time to sort out what media will best convey them. This is the kind of consulting work that I do, is basically helping you figure out which markets are your best target markets, what messages you'll want to create and refine for you, and then what media is best for delivering them. So These are the things that go into that marketing plan development. And as I said it before, I don't believe you're planning to fail if you don't have a marketing plan, but that failure to plan makes it far less likely that you'll succeed. And you don't want to be one of those 4 out of 5 businesses that doesn't make it after the first year or two. So that's today's tips and today's advice that I have for you. To reinforce that a little bit, I would like to show you a brief video from my friend Bob Schuster, who runs Owl Eye Coaching in Bend, Oregon. He's been a professional business coach for several years. He works with self-employed entrepreneurs there and remotely via Skype. He doesn't work with beginners. He only works with fairly seasoned people. Bob has some interesting things to say about getting things done during your day. So let me share that with you. And here's Bob Schuster coming to you. Oops, it looks like we lost that video. Let's try it again very briefly and see if we could get it back. My apologies there. I did try this yesterday and it did work. And in fact, I double checked it this morning and it worked. So we'll give it another shot here and see if we can get that video back. Otherwise, I would suggest if you go to YouTube, you can find several videos from Bob the Coach out there. Let's give this another try. So there's Bob Schuster, the coach out in Bend, Oregon, telling you that it's time to eat your frog. All right. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate that encouragement for getting our day started right and our week started right. Now, for those of you who are watching, this is where you get your answers to the questions that have popped up. And as I mentioned, there's a question and answer box in the upper left there. So I am going to see if I can answer that one. Bob actually sent one in here called, it says, how do I determine what niche is right for me? Well, that answer, I'm afraid, is not as simple as you would like it to be, Bob. That answer, the correct answer to that is it depends. And that is not a cop-out. That means that you really have to go through this analysis process that I talked about earlier in order to figure out the characteristics of that customer, the various segments in that market, in order to determine which niche is right for you. Bob also says, no audio, just me. Interestingly enough, I thought I could hear the audio, so I'm not sure what happened to that. And then how do I get information on my prospective niche? That's a great question. There are lots of places to do that. You can do market research on social media if you're using that, for example. Your LinkedIn statistics, your Google Analytics, your Google searches, your Facebook Insights. You can go to areas like Nexus, Lexis, or your local library for information from Info USA. There are a lot of different places where you can actually get information on what your market niches are. So I hope that answers the question. And let's see what else we've got here in the way of questions. That seems to be all that came in so far in this broadcast. But we did get questions in between the two broadcasts from last Monday and this Monday, and I'll address those at this point. One of the questions that came in was the question about which social media platforms are best for business to consumer marketing and for business-to-business marketing. Well, it sounds like we have the audio for Bob back there. I'm not quite sure why. But it seems to have disappeared there. What platforms are best for B2B versus B2C marketing? Again, the answer to that, there's no direct immediate answer, but in general, for example, I tend to use LinkedIn more for business to business than business to consumer. And I tend to use Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest for the business to consumer areas. And again, it sort of depends on your demographic. If you're aiming at mainly females, you'll find that Pinterest historically has pretty much been female dominated, although that is changing. A lot of that is now moving. Males are moving to it as well. If your niche is best addressed with messages that are graphical, Instagram is a good platform for that. And in fact, graphical or video is best nowadays for almost any social media platform. Next question that came in had to do with, do I really need an email address like john@johntorino.com or my name at mydomain.com? Can I just use my AOL or my Yahoo mail address? Well, I wrote some blog posts way back 3 years ago about your online and your offline business image. And frankly, I don't want to buy from Billy Bob Joe's window service at AOL.com. AOL's been around for so many years that you might think, wow, it shows I've been in business a long time. But in today's world, it shows that you're really out of touch with technology. And, is your business, are you a Yahoo or are you a professional? When you set up your website, it is not that difficult to have an email portion added to that. Worst case, use something at gmail.com because Gmail is fairly well accepted as professional if you don't have your own domain name. But in general, if you can get your name at your domain name, that's a much better approach to than using something like AOL or Yahoo. A related question that came in with that is, aren't printed business cards now obsolete? Well, I don't think so. There are tools and technology like Camcard and Bump and some of the other techniques, the near field connections, NFCs, where you put the phones close to each other and they transmit or transfer information about each other, but not everybody uses them. And having a business card so that people can write some information on the back of it to remember to contact you about something is an important thing to be able to hand out in a network meeting or a leads meeting or something like that. I don't think business cards are obsolete. And on the topic of business cards, make sure they're readable. I have seen some horrible business cards. The designers, the graphics artists, the other artists, I'm sure they love them, but your scanning software can't read them because they've got light type on dark backgrounds or light type on lighter backgrounds. The typeface is weird, or it's so tiny that even with my glasses on, I can't read them. Make sure your business cards are readable. The final question that came in back there was, how do I get my business listed on Google? Well, this is important, and you really want to be able to have your business on Google. Google has a program, Get Your Business Online, as a matter of fact, that will help you do that. And there are ways to get websites very inexpensively. You can even build a website on the Google business pages, and it won't cost you anything. So go to Google and Google, how do I get my business online? And you'll get tons of information and tons of tips on how to do that. So thank you to my viewers from last week's episode who sent those questions in. For those of you who are watching this or the replay, which you can find up on YouTube, please do send your questions to john@johntorino.com, and we'll cover them in the next episode of Monday Marketing Minutes. You can also find a wealth of additional information on the topic of marketing and on business on my website. Visit johntorino.com. There's lots of information on there, lots of presentations, lots of ebooks, and links to a lot of other sources of information and other organizations that can help you. If you're in the Portland area, there's a calendar there that you can subscribe to that has all the networking events. And I encourage you to check out some of the publications that are on that website. The ebooks on marketing, on sales. Try the piano story, getting to yes in the sales process. It's a great story. There are courses on networking. That was up on Yes Course, which is a new platform called Business Networking Necessities, Niceties, and No-Nos. The Marketing Plan Seminar I mentioned, which is up on Udemy. So you'll find the links to those courses, and you'll find links to all of these episodes of Monday Marketing Minutes as well on the Monday Marketing Minutes link on johntorino.com. And then there are links to Small Business Administration, government organizations, and a lot of other places, including a lot of nationwide networking organizations that you can find on that website. So coming next week, I will be answering next week's marketing tips and information. Whoops, lost that slide there. Let's see if we can get that back. Answers to new viewer questions we will have in there. And a guest presenter, if I can scrounge one up. Speaking of that, if you have something you'd like to say that you would be willing to share, somewhere between 2 and 5 or 7 minutes, depending, and maybe put a graphic together, I can connect you into this Google Hangout on Air and give you that platform so that you can present your information and help your fellow small business owners. So just send me an email to john@johntorino.com saying that you'd like to become a guest presenter. And between now and the Monday you're going to appear, we'll do a little test and make sure we can get you connected in. You could be our next guest presenter. In the meantime, please do send your questions for next week to john@johntorino.com. And I want to say thank you for participating in today's episode or for watching the replay or both. And thank you very much. And I hope you have a great week. See you next week.